Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a stack of sources, reports, research, whatever you've gathered, and really cut straight to the most important insights. Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
And we're your guides, helping you navigate that material, pull out those key nuggets, and, make sense of what really matters.
Today, we're diving into something that, well, it touches pretty much everything around us right now. Human and AI control.
Yeah, and we're working from a really fascinating source today. It's an in-depth report looking at control, but kind of through an AI-centric lens, comparing how humans and AI understand and exert influence.
Across different parts of life, yeah. So our mission is basically to unpack this report, get right to the core of its analysis, and give you a clearer picture of these, well, intricate dynamics of control, what it means for us, what it means for AI.
And what it means for the future we're building.
Exactly. Hopefully we'll pull back the curtain on some surprising connections and maybe land on a few big aha moments along the way.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's dive in. The report starts right out by framing control not just as, an idea, but as something absolutely fundamental, woven into the fabric of human existence.
Yeah, it says it's pervasive, shows up in every culture, throughout history, at every age. It's just there.
And it talks about how, for humans, control is this really complex mix, partly internal, right? Our ability to regulate ourselves, that feeling that we can actually influence outcomes.
That sense of agency.
Yeah. But it's also shaped by all the external stuff, society, relationships, the environment, things that exert control over us too.
And the report immediately contrasts this with the AI perspective. Describes AI's grasp of control as purely computational.
Right. All about data, pattern recognition, algorithms.
And crucially, it completely lacks the subjective, conscious experience. What it feels like to have control or, lose it.
That distinction is huge, isn't it? And this report really digs into the human side first, exploring those deep foundations of our sense of control.
It looks at it from a few different angles, starting with the philosophical big picture.
The classic debates, like free will versus determinism. It asks, are our choices genuinely free? Could we always have done otherwise?
Or are our actions just determined by everything that came before, genes, environment, you name it?
Exactly. The report lays out hard determinism, which argues, well, no free will because everything's cause and effect, which then raises some pretty uncomfortable questions about moral responsibility, doesn't it?
It does. But then there's soft determinism or compatibilism, which tries to sort of bridge that gap. It says, okay, maybe actions are determined, but if we're acting according to our own desires, our own will, without external force stopping us, that still counts as freedom.
And moral responsibility still holds.
From that perspective, yes. So even if the underlying causes were set, the process of you making the decision, acting on your will, that's where human agency comes in.
Precisely. The report defines human agency as intentionally influencing your own functioning and life circumstances through conscious decision-making.
It's about reflecting, considering options, making a deliberate choice.
And the report is really clear. For humans, this subjective experience of deliberation, of perceived influence, that is control. And it's a core difference from AI.
Okay, so moving from those big philosophical questions to the psychological frameworks the report explores. It talks about perceived control.
This is really powerful stuff. It's simply the belief that you can achieve positive outcomes through your actions.
Right. And the report highlights that just believing you have control, even if objectively it's tricky, that belief alone has massive benefits, better well-being, stress management, even physical health improvements. It's framed almost like a fundamental psychological need.
And tied into that is self-efficacy.
That's your belief in your own competence, but for a specific task.
Exactly. The report notes your belief in your ability to, say, solve a math problem improves your performance on that specific task. Even if you think you're terrible at, juggling.
Their self-efficacy can vary. Makes sense.
Then there's a locus of control, basically, where you attribute the outcomes in your life.
Right. Internal versus external. If you have an internal locus, you believe you control things, your effort, your actions.
And external means you think outside forces, luck, fate, other people are in charge.
Yeah, and the report links an internal locus to being more proactive, taking initiative, while an external locus can sometimes lead to, apathy or feeling helpless.
Which makes perfect sense when you look at learned helplessness.
Oh, this is such a crucial concept from the report. If you're repeatedly exposed to situations where you truly have no control, you learn to become passive, helpless, and that persists even when control does become possible later.
So low perceived control, as the report states, directly leads to apathy. You just stop trying to change things.
It really shows how powerful belief is, for better or for worse.
It's fascinating how deeply our internal state, our beliefs about control, shape our actions, and even our capacity to act. Now, the report also zooms out to the sociological dimensions.
Right, social control, how societies maintain order and conformity.
It can be informal, like peer pressure, family norms, or formal, like laws enforced by institutions.
Using rewards for fitting in and punishments for deviating.
And the report points out the balancing act here. Social control is necessary for a functioning society, sure.
But it can also constrain individual agency, force adherence to group expectations.
There's this constant tension, isn't there, between the needs of the collective and the autonomy of the individual.
Definitely. It mentions theories like social control theory, strong social bonds, prevent deviance, and self-control theory.
Which suggests low self-control developed early is a major predictor of things like criminal behavior. It connects individual capacity with those societal structures.
And the report really highlights power dynamics within relationships and systems as crucial.
Absolutely. Unequal power profoundly impacts control. In families, the report discusses how manipulation or overly strict rules can erode a child's sense of self-worth, their ability to make choices.
And in workplaces.
Well, formal hierarchies or even informal influence can limit career paths, affect consent, shape how information flows, all impacting that sense of control.
Looking even broader, the report covers cultural variations in how control is understood and manifested.
Yeah, this is where the meaning really shifts. In individualistic cultures, often found in the West, the focus is on the independent self. Autonomy, personal achievement. Control is seen as personal influence.
Right, the I consciousness.
Contrast that with collectivistic cultures common in parts of Asia, Latin America, Africa, which prioritize the group.
The we consciousness.
Identity is tied to the collective, relationships are central, harmony is highly valued. The report notes these cultures are often regulated more by shame dishonoring the group than guilt, which is more individual.
So culture deeply defines what control is and how it's exercised, whether it's about standing out or fitting in.
It's clear our understanding of control isn't just psychological or social. The report also delves into the biological and genetic underpinnings.
This is really eye-opening. The source states that self-control has a significant biological component. Something like 60% of the variation is down to genetics.
Yeah, over half is in our DNA. That fundamentally changes how we think about concepts like willpower.
It does. The report points to specific neurotransmitters, like dopamine and serotonin, being key for impulse control. And variations in certain genes, it mentions TPH2, MAOA especially, combined with difficult childhood experiences, can increase vulnerability to impulsivity, even antisocial behaviors.
And this biological wiring helps explain the immense challenge of addiction, doesn't it?
Exactly. The report describes how addictive substances effectively hijack the brain's reward system. Those pathways involving the nucleus accumbens, dopamine,
Right.
creating intense urges and disrupting the prefrontal cortex, the part critical for executive control decision-making. It makes conscious self-control incredibly difficult.
So it shows it's not just a lack of willpower, but a real biological disruption.
Absolutely. Control isn't purely rational choice or upbringing. It's deeply intertwined with our physiology, our genetic makeup.
It's a complex system, not a simple dial.
Exactly. And the report also gives us a quick historical overview of how these ideas evolved in psychology.
Yeah, it goes from early philosophical ideas, mind-body split, rational control, to the rise of scientific psychology.
Mentioning behaviorism in the early 20th century, which deliberately focused only on observable actions, conditioning, dismissing consciousness from the study of control.
While at the same time, you had Freud introducing the idea of powerful unconscious drives, things we aren't even aware of but that are influencing our actions.
And then post-WWII, clinical psychology expanded, bringing in behavior therapy, but also realizing the importance of heredity, biological influences, making the picture even more complex.
The report highlights how later research kind of corrected behaviorism's underestimation of biology.
So our understanding of human control has really evolved. From simple rational models to acknowledging all these intricate layers, unconscious, learned, biological, environmental, cultural. It's messy, subjective, deeply human.
Okay, that gives us a rich picture of human control. Now let's pivot and look at how AI approaches this based on the report.
As we touched on, AI's approach is just fundamentally different. Computational, data-driven, pattern recognition. Purely that.
The report describes AI's computational approach using algorithms, often neural networks, to analyze massive data sets. They aren't explicitly programmed with rules of human behavior.
No, they learn them organically.
Yeah.
By finding patterns in the data.
Using different models, rule-based, Bayesian, reinforcement learning, neural networks, all aimed at simulating aspects of human decision-making.
Yeah, and these models can be incredibly powerful for analyzing trends, predicting behavior, optimizing systems. But here's the critical point the report really hammers home.
Which is?
While AI excels at processing data and prediction, it completely lacks subjective comprehension, consciousness.
The report's cat example is perfect for this. An AI identifies millions of cat images based on visual patterns, numerical associations.
But it doesn't know what a cat is in the way we do. The warmth, the purr, the feeling.
It operates on statistical correlations, not meaning or lived experience. The report notes this is why modeling complex human decisions is so hard for AI, because our decisions aren't always logical.
Right. They're inconsistent, emotional, biased in ways AI just doesn't subjectively experience.
So let's talk more about those specific limitations in comprehending subjective human experience.
The report is very clear on this. AI struggles with nuance and context. It makes errors that still need human judgment to fix.
Lacks genuine creativity too, right? It can generate novel combinations based on data, but no original ideas, no artistic vision.
Exactly. And crucially, it lacks emotional intelligence in any meaningful way.
This is flagged as a major barrier, especially where human interaction is involved. AI can't truly understand or respond to human emotions.
It can simulate the language, maybe, based on patterns.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel empathy or frustration. It creates that uncanny valley sometimes, doesn't it? Especially with trying to simulate natural conversation, like laughter or hesitation.
That emotional gap is key to understanding why AI can't grasp human control. Because our control, or lack of it, is so tied to our feelings.
The report also emphasizes that large language models, the ones that seem to understand text so well, they don't actually understand words or concepts.
No, they process language as numerical tokens. They predict the statistically most likely next token based on patterns they've learned.
So they don't have conscious experiences, beliefs, desires, feelings.
And because they learn from vast amounts of human-generated data, they inevitably inherit the biases and inaccuracies in that data. Their output reflects patterns, not an internal truth or understanding.
Now, the report touches on AI and control systems and even the concept of AI having a kind of agency.
In engineering, sure. Control systems automate tasks humans used to do. They can be sophisticated, like adaptive systems that adjust based on feedback, kind of mirroring how our bodies maintain homeostasis.
And the report discusses more complex agentic AI systems, AI designed to interact with the world, pursue goals.
Yes, and it raises an interesting point about agency loss for humans. Even when these systems follow our intent by making things too efficient or predictable.
They can make us dependent.
Exactly. Potentially eroding our own sense of control or ability to act independently. It makes you wonder who's really in the driver's seat sometimes.
So an AI having functional agency, performing actions to achieve a goal, is still vastly different from human autonomy or free will.
A critical distinction the report reinforces. It mentions the idea of advanced AI exhibiting functional free will intentional actions, choosing alternatives, but strongly cautions. This doesn't imply consciousness or moral capability like humans have.
Which puts the ethical responsibilities squarely on the developers, right?
Right.
To build moral frameworks into these systems, because the AI itself doesn't get right from wrong. Okay, that distinction leads us into the report's comparison of human and AI control across various domains. Let's start with things tied to our deepest drives: drugs, alcohol, and sex.
The human struggle for control here is often framed around addiction, as the report details. It's a clear example of biology disrupting control substances, hijacking reward pathways, altering brain function, impairing executive control.
And psychological factors play a role too, like low self-control or past trauma.
Yeah. And with sex, control is fundamentally about consent. The report highlights it needs to be voluntary, clear, continuous, enthusiastic, sober, informed, emphasizing individual agency.
It also notes the complexity around sex addiction. Is it brain chemistry or a coping mechanism?
And AI's role here, primarily data analysis and support. It can predict relapse risk, personalize treatment plans, monitor medication adherence. It's a tool for analyzing patterns.
But it cannot possibly grasp the subjective experience of addiction, the craving, the struggle hitting rock bottom.
Exactly. Nor can it understand the nuanced dynamics of consent. The subtle social cues, the emotional state, the feeling of desire or discomfort. AI processes explicit data, but not the subjective experience behind it. It optimizes interventions, but doesn't feel the craving.
Next up, the report looks at greed.
For humans, control over greed is challenged by that insatiable desire for more. Fueled by biology, accumulation drives social comparison, insecurity, fear of scarcity, desire for power.
And the report points out the wide-ranging negative impacts. Ethical compromises, environmental damage, personal dissatisfaction. It can even feel addictive, right? Dopamine hits.
And AI's understanding of greed?
Limited to what it sees in data. Economic transactions, resource patterns, market behaviors. AI can model financial risks or optimize logistics for maximum efficiency.
But it doesn't feel insecure, or crave power, or experience that emptiness.
No. It lacks subjective desires, fears, internal satisfaction, or dissatisfaction. If programmed to optimize profit, it will do so with potentially amoral efficiency unless constrained. It optimizes accumulation, but doesn't get the human drive or the internal conflict.
How about lies and truth?
The report calls lying common human behavior, self-preservation, controlling perceptions, avoiding punishment. But it erodes trust, can lead to self-deception. Small lies make bigger ones easier.
And dishonesty is cognitively demanding. There's debate. Is honesty our default, so lying takes control? Or are we selfish, so honesty takes control?
Right. Honesty as a virtue is foundational to trust, often requiring self-control to override selfish impulses.
And AI's relationship with truth.
Based on pattern recognition, statistical likelihoods, and its training data, not moral conviction. LLMs can hallucinate, generate biased or inaccurate text because they're predicting patterns, not checking facts against reality or ethics.
So an AI doesn't know truth in the human sense, right? It doesn't intend to deceive morally.
Correct. Its outputs are artifacts of data and algorithms, lacking intentionality, moral weight. And AI doesn't have beliefs or desires needed to grapple with the ethics of truth and falsehood.
Moving to a deeply human, weighty topic, life and death.
Human control here is incredibly complex. Ethics, culture, personal beliefs all intertwine. The report discusses ethical questions around defining life and death, quality of life, end-of-life decisions, resuscitation, euthanasia.
And patient autonomy is central, right? The right to decide, advance directives.
Absolutely. Cultural and religious beliefs play a huge role. It's inherently stressful, aiming to alleviate suffering while respecting patient wishes through communication, shared decision-making.
How does AI engage with this?
Its role is currently limited to data processing, pattern analysis, and medicine, assisting diagnosis, analyzing records, suggesting treatments based on data, predicting outcomes, personalizing care.
But it cannot provide the emotional support or grasp the existential weight of mortality.
Absolutely not. It lacks that emotional understanding central to the human experience of illness, dying, grief. The report even mentions digital immortality, preserving consciousness digitally, raising profound questions about authenticity, grief, what it even means to be alive.
So AI offers medical utility, but it's starkly different from the deep human, emotional, spiritual dimensions of life and death. It assists, simulates, but can't comprehend the existential weight.
What about faith and belief systems?
This is deeply personal, often cultural. Faith can be a source of comfort, guidance, meaning a moral framework. It fosters community, offers coping strategies like prayer, meditation, can help regulate behavior, process emotions.
And the concept of surrender within faith.
Right. Consciously letting go of the desire for control, trusting a higher power, often seen as strength, leading to peace, purpose, requires intentional acts of belief.
And AI cannot experience faith.
No, lacks consciousness, beliefs, desires, feelings. It can process religious texts, analyze patterns, simulate conversations algorithmically, but its understanding is purely informational, statistical.
It can't internalize a spiritual experience, genuinely surrender, or feel conviction.
Exactly. You can program AI with ethical principles from philosophy, but it can't internalize them as a moral compass driven by personal conviction or faith.
Okay, let's shift gears to something foundational. Basic needs: health, food, water, satisfaction, rest, sleep.
The report highlights these as the bedrock of well-being. Maslow's hierarchy, physiological needs first. Our bodies seek homeostasis, unmet needs cause tension.
Meeting needs often requires aid for the vulnerable. But for individuals, self-control is also crucial, right? Managing diet, exercise, rest, making difficult health changes.
And AI's role here.
This is a domain where the report sees significant potential. AI as an optimizer, an amplifier of human self-control.
Like a personalized health code.
Yeah. offering data-driven insights, suggesting recipes, tracking activity, monitoring health metrics. AI agents can use motivational interviewing techniques to help identify barriers, like emotional eating.
It sounds like AI supports rather than replaces our own efforts.
Exactly. The report talks about precision nudging, tailoring interventions type, timing based on your specific pattern's preferences.
So it's not one size fits all.
Right. Think a smartwatch nudge, but maybe combined with a conversation about why it's hard for you to stand up. AI augments our capacity, makes healthy choices feel more accessible, helps us feel supported, more in control of our health. It even mentions applications in child development, helping kids learn to manage emotions.
Finally, relationships. Family, professional, societal.
Human control within relationships is heavily shaped by power dynamics, as the report notes. Toxic family dynamics, disrespect, manipulation can limit autonomy.
Professional power imbalances affect opportunities, consent, create risks like harassment.
And on a societal level, laws and norms are forms of social control, essential for order, but they define boundaries. Low individual self-control makes navigating these expectations harder, potentially leading to conflict.
And AI is becoming increasingly integrated into our social lives.
Yes, the report points to AI in social roles assistants, companions, used in education too, personalizing learning, admin tasks, simulating scenarios.
But the report raises concerns about the impact on authentic human connection.
This is a key point. AI companionship offers interaction, but lacks reciprocity, genuine emotional presence. The report warns this could lead to empathy atrophy, a diminished human capacity to recognize others' emotional needs if we rely too much on AI.
Its long-term impact on social expectations is uncertain. And in education, worries about academic integrity if AI generates work, undermining the learning process.
The challenge, as the report frames it, is designing AI that genuinely supports our social and emotional well-being without exploiting our needs or eroding essential human connections and self-control skills.
Right. It's about finding that balance. Now, based on the report, how is the world reacting to some of these changes, and what are the ethical questions coming up?
The report touches on societal reactions to a perceived loss of control, often showing up as stigma, misperception. It highlights stigma around mental illness as a major barrier to getting help.
And that common misperception linking mental illness to criminality.
Yeah, when the report says individuals with mental illness are actually far more likely to be victims.
And reactions to cruelty.
Complex dynamics. Sometimes a breakdown of empathy, seeing victims as less human, or perversely exploiting suffering, like online trolling. Cruelty can be learned or emerge when people feel unable to contain negative emotions, especially if their worldview feels threatened.
This definitely connects to the profound ethical implications of AI influencing human control.
The report really digs into this. A major concern is autonomy and oversight, ensuring humans stay free from AI coercion or undue interference. Requires robust human oversight.
It mentions different models for that.
Yes, human in the loop, human on the loop, human in command, which is the most comprehensive considering broader impacts. Crucial for getting AI's benefits while keeping human control and accountability. And it specifically warns against AI simulating social relationships or addictive behaviors.
Bias and fairness are also huge considerations.
Absolutely. AI learns from human data, so it picks up our biases. Can lead to unfair outcomes in hiring, loans, etc. The report stresses that detecting and mitigating this bias needs ongoing human oversight, evaluation, tuning.
And as AI gets more autonomous, accountability and responsibility get complicated.
It really blurs the lines. Debates about AI legal personhood, but concerns that could create scapegoats. We need new liability frameworks, transparency, ethical review boards.
And again, the crucial point. AI lacks consciousness, feelings. Functional free will isn't moral capability.
So the ethical imperative is on developers to build in moral frameworks and ensure human oversight remains paramount. The challenge: design AI to enhance well-being without amplifying bias or control failures.
Finally, integrating a sense of right and wrong into AI.
Incredibly complex, exploring ethical frameworks, utilitarianism, deontology, virtue ethics for computational modeling. Goal: algorithms, processing rules, identifying stakeholders, resolving conflicts. But morality is abstract. Rules can conflict.
It mentions the Delphi AI example.
Yeah, trained on human moral judgments, but showed flaws, superficial, biased. Underscores the need for AI-taught ethics from the start, and developers needing a strong grasp of moral philosophy.
So, looking ahead, based on the report, what are potential improvements and strategies? Using AI to enhance human well-being and control.
The core idea is leveraging AI as an amplifier for human self-control and well-being. Personalized health interventions, nutrition, exercise, chronic conditions, AI agents using motivational interviewing, identifying barriers like emotional eating.
And precision nudging seems key here.
Yes, tailoring interventions based on individual patterns. Not generic reminders, but the right reminder at the right time in the right way for that person. Makes healthy choices feel more accessible, helps people feel supported, more in control.
It seems AI can also play a role in fostering responsible development itself.
Absolutely. A collaborative effort industry, government, ethicists, scientists, key strategies, robust ethical frameworks in design, transparency and explainability, understanding why AI decides things, bias mitigation, human oversight models.
And bidirectional human-AI alignment.
Designing systems that adapt to and support our human social-emotional nature, not just optimized tasks. Plus, fundamental things like data privacy security and public engagement education.
The goal is AI aligning with human values, enhancing agency, fostering trustworthiness.
Precisely. And the report brings in mathematical and logical deductions as a powerful framework for understanding and influencing control.
Like using game theory.
Yeah, analyzing strategic interactions, predicting outcomes in cooperation or conflict scenarios. Probabilistic models like Bayesian inference help AI handle real-world uncertainty, weigh likelihoods. Bayesian decision theory even helps understand how our brains make decisions under uncertainty.
And choice engineering.
A data-driven approach using computation to shape behavior precisely, more systematically than intuition-based choice architecture. The report gives an example where math models were more effective. Quantifying control provides a precise way to analyze and influence.
Though the challenge remains modeling those non-rational human decisions, influenced by bias and emotion.
A persistent human element that resists purely mathematical models.
This has been an incredibly deep dive. The report paints this really clear picture, doesn't it? That core distinction. Human control is complex, subjective, emotional, philosophical, layered with biology, culture.
While AI's is computational, data-driven, purely analytical.
And critically, AI, in its current form, cannot replicate that subjective human experience of control. The struggle with addiction, the nuance of consent, the existential weight, spiritual surrender.
But the potential is there for a powerful synergy. AI as an amplifier, an optimizer, a tool to support our own self-control and well-being, helping us manage complexity.
Absolutely. The future, as the report suggests, isn't AI replacing human control, but a careful, ethically guided synergy. Robust human oversight ensuring AI enhances, not diminishes, human agency and flourishing.
Which leads to a final thought, perhaps. Given how incredibly complex our own capacity for control is influenced by genes, culture, experience, prone to things like learned helplessness, how should we really measure success or failure?
Both in ourselves and in the systems we design for this future of human-AI interaction.
Yeah. What does it genuinely mean for you to flourish in an increasingly AI-integrated world, and who ultimately gets to define that?
This is DigitView.